Hey everyone, Tactics here, and back from vacation. There's a lot of Mythic Plus news that has happened over the last week and a half that I've been gone, and so today we're going to talk about that. So we've got a bunch of stuff from the dungeon rotation, how loot is going to work in Mythic Plus and in Dragonflight, dungeon difficulty, the new seasonal affix thundering, including a brand new iteration that was data mined today, actually. So we'll talk about that as well. Of course, we also had a couple dungeons up for testing over the weekend that just happened. I did manage to come back in time to do a bit of testing myself. So I'll talk about all that. In terms of tank stuff, I'm saving that for another video, but I will be putting out stuff on tanks and Guardian Druid as well, an individual video for every single tank later on once I've done more testing with them. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss that. But otherwise, let's start off with the big one, loot. So in this post, Blizzard kind of outlines near the bottom here how loot is now going to work. So scaling for loot is going to go all the way to a plus 20 now instead of a plus 15. And they've kind of rearranged or minorly adjusted how Great Vault loot is going to work. And actually there's a good picture here on Wowhead. I'll link this down below if you guys want to see it, about how the comparison actually works now. So basically here, if you complete 20s, or 19s even, you get 405 item level in the end of the dungeon reward, and what that compares to is low heroic. It's a little bit higher even than low heroic. And what you end up getting from your Great Vault at the end of the week is actually 421 from a 20, which is equivalent to the mid tier of Mythic. For those unaware, they've put in 3 tiers of loot within raids now as well. So there's the first 4 bosses, there's the wing end bosses, and then there's the final bosses that all drop different eye level. So this is plus 20 in your vault is giving you loot equivalent to wing end bosses, which is honestly fantastic for Mythic Plus players. I think it's a great change, and I'm pretty happy with how this is going to work. It still gives raiders an advantage in 2 sections. So one, your end bosses, but now this advantage is only 3 eye levels as opposed to the 7 eye levels that it is currently in Shadowlands. And on top of that, of course, raiders still also have those new unique items, which are several item levels higher. So, for example, unique items off the first 4 bosses are equivalent to this now. They're equivalent to mid-mythic bosses. Unique off mid-mythic bosses are going to be, like 427, I believe. And then, obviously, the unique off the final boss is going to be 430 eye level. So there's still a bit of an advantage for raiders, but the gap is significantly decreased, and this actually makes a lot of things, Mythic Plus trinkets, for example, much more competitive with raid trinkets, as you can get it at a much closer eye level, even the end boss ones. So it's definitely very, very good news for Mythic Plus players, especially if you're pushing those higher keys. The other thing here is Valor has gotten a new rank for 2400 rating, and that lets you go up to 415 eye level, which of course is low Mythic. So the first 4 bosses of Mythic, you can upgrade Valor gear now to that point. Of course, Valor will be capped, unlike in Season 4, so you do still have to worry about that Valor cap, so it's not like you can infinitely farm full 415 gear at the beginning of the season. You do still have that cap restricting you from doing that, but you can kind of choose pieces and get them up to a Mythic eye level, which is pretty nice for Mythic Plus only players. One thing I guess some people have been harping on is if you do a 15 now in Dragonflight, you'll be getting relatively lower item level loot, which is true. So if you see here from the 15, what it gives out of the vault now is 411, which is effectively 4 item levels lower than it would give currently, right? So this would be like if currently it gave 300 eye level gear instead of 304. I believe it gives 304. So instead of giving you 304 gear currently in Season 4 in Shadowlands, it gave you 300 gear. But you can just do a 16, and if you do a 16, it is essentially equivalent to you doing a weekly 15 now. The only difference would be the slight increase in difficulty. Now, talking about difficulty, there is new scaling they are introducing as well, which is listed here. Basically, after a plus 10, there is new scaling, and you can kind of see the comparison here on how those keys work. So using that same example, if you want, you have to do a plus 16 now to get that same loot as a plus 15. that is basically equivalent to just over a plus 17 now. So it is a little bit of a jump, but honestly, at the same time, if you want a bigger reward, I am definitely a firm believer that doing harder content should reward you with a bigger reward. I do think this is fair. Right? If you want to get the better gear, you should have to do the higher content. And obviously, this isn't even like, hey, you have to do a 25 now to get this, right? This is still relatively achievable for even people that were doing like 15, 16s in season 4. I think doing a 20 in season 1 of Dragonflight is definitely doable if you put in the time and set that as a goal for yourself. I think it's totally achievable for a lot of players in the game. I don't think it's unfair, but what do you guys think? Would definitely love to hear. How do you guys think this does for Mythic Plus loot? Are you happy with it? Do you think they should have gone further? Do you think Mythic Plusers don't deserve loot? Let me know down in the comments below. But another big thing coming with this season is, of course, the seasonal affix, and that is Thundering. So Thundering initially was pretty fun. Let's look. I have a video. Let's go look at what Thundering was. Here it is. Okay, so here's Thundering. So all these swirlies spawn, and then shortly after they've spawned, every single player gets these 5 prideful lions, essentially these lightning orbs. 5 of them though, not 4. And then you shoot them out, and you have to dodge them all at the same time. So it was a little rough. There was no kiss to it at all. It was just that you have to dodge all the swirlies. Then you have to shoot the orbs out, which honestly, on its own, when it's the only thing, was annoying in a lot of situations, but like doable. But if you ever added like any kind of affix, mechanic, anything on top of it, it was pretty cursed. It got pretty cursed pretty quickly. So what they've done now in this new rework of it is they removed those prideful lines. So those prideful lines are gone. What is going to still happen is those swirlies are going to come out. Let's go back up. So these swirlies are still going to come out every minute 15, I believe it was. 1 minute and 15 timer. It would just, this affix would happen. So these swirlies are going to come out, and then not everyone, sorry. And then debuffs are going to go out with people. Not Primal Overload. Mark of Wind or Mark of Lightning. So think Anduin debuffs, right? Purple, yellow. We don't know how many are going to come out. Is 2 going to come out? Are 4 going to come out? Is 5 going to come out? But basically, some number of these debuffs is going to go out, and it's going to last 15 seconds. And during that 15 seconds, you have 15% damage and healing increase. Now, after that 15 seconds ends, you will be stunned for, it looks like 8 seconds. Unsure if this is just the damage or if that's the actual duration of the stun or what. But you will be stunned if you do not cleanse this debuff in some way. And the way to cleanse this debuff is by coming into contact with the opposite mark. So again, Anduin debuffs. It's going to be some number of people marked with wind, some number of people marked with lightning, and you need to touch someone of the other debuff to cleanse that debuff. So you don't get stunned. Obviously, you'd want to cleanse this later to take advantage of this damage and healing buff, most likely, but in some cases it might not be worthwhile. So it's a relatively interesting affix and definitely way, way, way better than it used to be. But one thing I will say is that in this post here, Blizzard talks a little bit about seasonal affixes. I think important to highlight this part here. A side effect of the dungeon rotation change is that it takes pressure off the seasonal affix to be the big thing, transforms your gameplay, and has given us space to really think about what a seasonal affix might look like going forward. If you move forward down here, since you're already going to be learning a whole new set of dungeons, the seasonal affix can be less complicated and focus more on being about thematic flavor. So obviously here, Thundering related to that first end boss, Razageth, or whatever his name is. In here, yeah, Razageth, the Wind Dragon. So having him be thematic, cool, 100%. Of course, a lot of the recent affixes have been thematic as well. But I'm not really sure this kind of fits that whole less complicated thing that Blizzard is aiming at for seasonal affixes. This certainly seems like there is quite a bit going on with this seasonal affix, and it happens very, very often, right? If you think about something like Prideful, that happened only a few times in the entire dungeon. Now you've got this affix happening every minute 15, and you have to like deal with whatever's happening right in that moment, trash, boss, whatever. You dodge the swirlies, that's fine. But now you've got this debuff, and now you have to work between, okay, who do I go cleanse my debuff with? Oh, I need to kick this mob. Oh, I need to stop this spell, etc. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And of course, pugs as well. Pugs are going to struggle with this a fair bit. That's just my first thoughts on it. Obviously, we haven't tested it, right? Again, we don't know if it's going to be, is it going to be 2 debuffs? Is it going to be 4 debuffs? Is it going to be 5 and one person just has to eat this stun every time? Is this stun like dispellable or anything like that? We still haven't tested it yet. But that's just my initial thoughts on this affix. Much better than the first iteration, but I'm not sure it hits the whole simpler thing that Blizzard was aiming for. Outside of that, we did, of course, have 2 dungeons open for testing. Ruby Life Pools, as well as Azure Vaults. 2 of the Dragonflight specific dungeons that were available for testing that are going to be in Season 1, of course. And so far, they're both relatively short dungeons. I believe they both had like a 30-minute timer or something like that, or around 30 minutes. So fairly short dungeons. Ruby Life Pool is a 3 boss. Azure Vault is a 4 boss. Trash was pretty interesting. I have, of course, a few things to worry about with the dungeon, but again, it's their first iteration of the dungeons. I'll kind of hold that for now. But overall, short dungeons. Big fan of most of the bosses. Some of the trash was overtuned. Thunderhead probably giving people PTSD, of course, if you did the beta, but I'm sure that guy is going to get tuned down a lot. But yeah, interesting bosses, short dungeons. I'm all for them so far. Hopefully, maybe the next set of Dragonflight specific dungeons will be available for testing with this new Thundering Affix, and we'll be able to see how both this work and how the other 2 Dragonflight dungeons are. But so far, I am pretty happy with how Mythic Plus is looking moving into Dragonflight, and hopefully there's a bunch more good changes before the expansion releases. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, make sure you leave a comment down below, let me know, or come stop by my Twitch at Tactics, where I stream all beta stuff. I'll be doing Mythic raid testing this week. Big thing, this Sunday we'll be doing a full normal clear of the raid on beta, so come check that out. And of course, Mythic Plus testing whenever that's available. I'll be doing that as well. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.